This all started with one sentence I wasn't remotely prepared for. Hey, can I ask you something kind of weird? That's how Jason opened the conversation that would upend the carefully balanced friendship I'd kept perfectly platonic for almost 5 years. Jason, my straight best friend since junior year of college. Jason, who once drunkenly declared that he'd never be into dudes while shirtless on my couch, shoveling nachos into his mouth. Jason, who I may or may not have had a massive, painfully unreciprocated crush on for about 80% of our friendship, so yeah, I braced myself. We were sitting on the bench outside his apartment, sipping beers and letting the early spring breeze cool down the day's heat. It was one of those moments where everything felt easy between us. Comfortable. I'd just finished telling him about the guy I'd matched with, but probably wouldn't text back, and he was laughing, that deep belly laugh of his that always got to me. Then he dropped that sentence. I glanced over at him. You can always ask me weird things. That's kind of our brand. Jason scratched the back of his neck, eyes fixed on the sidewalk. Okay, but don't laugh, or make it a thing. Now I'm absolutely going to make it a thing, he exhaled. So I've got a date Friday. With Claire. From work. I nodded. Right, the one with the glasses and the murder podcast addiction. Yeah, she's cool. Actually cool. And I kinda want to be prepared. For what, her top 10 serial killer list? Jason shot me a look. No, for kissing. The date's probably going there, and I haven't kissed anyone since. I don't know, that New Year's Eve thing. I blinked. That was a year ago. Exactly, he said, like he just confirmed some tragic diagnoses. I'm out of practice. I was still trying to catch up. So what? You need me to give you tips? He looked right at me then, direct and unflinching. No, I was wondering if you'd let me practice. With you. The air between us seemed to freeze. My brain did a complete system reboot. What? He didn't laugh, didn't smile. Just once or twice. I don't want to be weird about it, but I trust you. You're a good kisser, right? I opened my mouth, closed it. That's not usually how people test that. Jason laughed nervously, brushing his hand over his jeans. I know, it's just, I figured if anyone would get it, it's you. And God help me, he wasn't wrong. I did get it. I got why he didn't want to test his rustiness on someone he actually wanted to impress. I got that he wasn't thinking about how asking me might be the single most confusing thing he could do to a guy who'd quietly carried a torch for him for years. I also got that saying yes would probably mess with my head in ways I couldn't even predict. But still, I said it. Okay, he blinked. Wait, really? Yeah, but if you use tongue without warning, I'm slapping you. Jason laughed again, but it sounded a little too relieved. Deal! And just like that, he leaned forward and kissed me. It was hesitant at first, like he wasn't sure what he was aiming for. But his lips were soft, a little dry from the beer, and surprisingly warm. And when I didn't pull away, when I let him linger there for a second longer than necessary, he shifted. His hand came up, barely grazing my jaw, and then suddenly it wasn't awkward anymore. It was real. When he finally pulled back, we both sat there for a second, not speaking. Not even breathing much. Jason cleared his throat. So, that was okay, I nodded, barely managing a smirk. Yeah, not bad for a rusty straight guy. He smiled, wide and genuine, and then glanced at his phone. Cool, thanks, man. You're seriously a lifesaver. I watched him go back into his building, acting like we hadn't just crossed a line I wasn't sure could be uncrossed. I figured that would be the end of it. One kiss. One favor. One weird story I'd carry to my grave. But then he called me the next night. Hey, he said, would you mind if we did that again? Just to be sure. When Jason called again the next night, I didn't answer right away. I let it ring twice. Then 3 times. I stared at his name flashing on the screen like it was some kind of warning. He left a voicemail. Hey, it's me. Just wondering if we could do that again? The kissing thing. I feel like I was stiff the first time. Want to try a different approach. Only if you're cool with it, obviously. Yeah, let me know. I listened to it twice. and then I called him back. We didn't make a big thing of it. I didn't ask why he wanted a redo. I didn't mention how I'd been replaying that first kiss in my head since the moment it happened. I just said, sure, come by. When he showed up, he looked nervous, less confident than usual. He stood in my doorway for a second too long, hands in the pockets of his hoodie, like he was suddenly unsure about going through with it. You don't have to do this, you know, I told him, trying not to sound like I was hoping he would anyway. No, I want to, he said, stepping inside. I just don't want to make it weird. Too late. We sat on my couch again, just like the first time. The TV was on in the background, some sitcom neither of us was watching. Jason kept fidgeting with his sleeve. Finally, he said, I think last time I was too in my head. I was thinking too much about doing it right. Maybe stop thinking about kissing a girl, I offered, half joking. And just kiss. He looked at me for a long second, then leaned in again. The second kiss was different. More confident. Slower. He tilted his head this time. His hand didn't hesitate. It slid along my jaw, thumb resting near the corner of my mouth like he'd done this 100 times before. And God, it felt good. Too good. I tried to keep it clinical. Detached. This was a favor. A kindness. A kiss for research. But somewhere between the way his lips moved and how his breath hitched when I kissed him back, I forgot all that. I kissed him like I'd wanted to for years. And he let me. When we pulled apart, we were both breathing harder than necessary. Jason stared at me, eyes wide, pupils dilated like he'd just seen something he wasn't supposed to. I expected him to laugh it off, make some joke, pretend it hadn't meant anything, but instead he said, That felt kind of intense. I nodded, forcing myself to smile. You're welcome for the best kiss of your life. He huffed out a quiet laugh. Yeah, thanks. We didn't talk about it anymore that night. He stayed a little longer, pretended to care about the show on TV, then left with a weird half-hug that lingered just a second too long. I told myself that would be it. Again. But then he texted me the next morning. Still thinking about that second kiss. You around later? And it kept happening. Twice that week. Then again the weekend before his date. Each time, the kisses lasted longer. Got a little more serious. A little more familiar. At one point I joked, Pretty sure you're just dating me at this point. He laughed, but he didn't deny it. And then something happened I didn't expect. He actually went on the date. I didn't hear from him that night. Didn't get a thanks or a wish me luck. Just radio silence. I tried not to let it bother me. After all, this wasn't supposed to mean anything, right? Then, the next day, he called. No text, no warning, just called. Hey, he said when I picked up, voice quiet. Can I come over? I hesitated. How'd it go with Claire? He didn't answer right away. I kissed her, he said finally. But it didn't feel like when I kissed you. And just like that, the air left the room. Okay, I said softly. So what does that mean? There was a pause. I could hear him breathing. I don't know. That's why I need to see you. He showed up 20 minutes later. No hoodie this time, just a plain t-shirt and jeans, like he hadn't thought too hard about it, but somehow looked perfect anyway. His hair was still damp, like he'd jumped in the shower and immediately driven over. He stood in my doorway again, just like before, but this time he didn't hesitate. I stepped aside, letting him in, and he walked straight to the couch, hands in his pockets, not looking at me yet. So I said, shutting the door, Claire wasn't. She was fine, he interrupted. She's cool, pretty, funny, exactly the kind of girl I should be into. I waited. But kissing her felt off, he continued. Like I was acting, like I was trying to remember what it was supposed to feel like. And with me? I asked, quieter now. He finally looked at me. It felt easy, he said, real. I sat down on the arm of the couch, keeping some distance between us because I didn't trust myself otherwise. Jason, you know I like you, right? He blinked. Yeah, and this, whatever this has been, it's been confusing as hell for me. I know. I didn't agree to be your experiment. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't back away. It's not an experiment. Then what is it? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like the answer was written somewhere in the carpet. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. "I've never thought of myself as anything but straight. I've never kissed a guy before you. You've kissed me 5 times. Yeah, and I can't stop thinking about it. That caught me off guard." He looked up, eyes tired, honest in a way I'd never seen. "I keep waiting for it to feel wrong," he said. "Like, I'll wake up one day and be like, okay, that was weird, glad we got that out of our system. But it hasn't happened. I'm still thinking about you. About us. About kissing you again." I stood up, pacing a little just to get the edge off my nerves. "Jason, I've had feelings for you for years. Do you have any idea what it's like hearing you say this now?" He stood too, suddenly right in front of me. "I'm sorry I didn't realize sooner. I don't want to hurt you." "You're kind of already doing that. I don't mean to." He stepped closer, cautiously. "But I swear, I'm not messing with you. I'm just figuring things out. I don't know if I'm gay or bi or whatever. I just know that when I kissed you, I didn't want to stop." I looked at him, trying to keep my voice steady. "So what do you want now?" He hesitated, just a second, then said, "I want to kiss you again, and I want it to not be practice this time." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because the second I looked into his eyes, I knew I was going to let him. And I did. He kissed me like he meant it, like he was choosing me. No hesitancy, no questions. His hands gripped the sides of my face, and I leaned into him without thinking. Like gravity had finally figured out where it wanted me. This wasn't a favor. This wasn't a test. This was Jason kissing me because he wanted to. When we finally pulled apart, both of us a little out of breath, he whispered, "So what now?" I didn't know. I didn't have an answer. But he stayed the night. And when he left the next morning, he kissed me again at the door. Slow, soft, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then he called me 2 hours later. "Hey, I know I just left, but I can't stop thinking about you again." The next few weeks blurred into something I didn't quite have a label for. He didn't stop calling. Sometimes he'd text first, "You home?" But mostly he'd just show up. Always with that same energy. Unsure but drawn in, like he couldn't stay away, even if part of him still didn't understand why. And I kept letting him in, because I didn't know how to say no to the one thing I'd wanted for so long. The second time he stayed the night, he slept in my bed. No pretense. No jokes. We didn't do anything physical. He just slid under the blanket beside me, pressed his chest gently to my back, and whispered, "Is this okay?" against the back of my neck. And it was. God, it was more than okay. But the morning after was harder. He'd always get quiet. Not cold, just distant, like he was slipping back into the version of himself that made more sense. The version that dated girls and made offhand jokes about hot actresses and said, "No homo," way more than he needed to back in college. One morning, as we stood brushing our teeth together in my cramped bathroom, he met my eyes in the mirror and said, "This doesn't make sense to me." I kept brushing. "What doesn't?" "You, me, this." I spat and rinsed. "Well, it makes sense to me," he looked down. "I didn't think I could ever feel this way about a guy." "You sure you're not just enjoying the attention?" I asked. Not accusing, but not completely joking either. He looked up, eyes locked with mine in the mirror. "No, that's not it." "Then what is it, Jason?" He shook his head. "I don't know. I just know I miss you when I'm not here. And when I am, I feel like I can finally breathe." I didn't respond. What was there to say to that? After he left that day, I told myself I needed space. I muted his notifications, turned off read receipts, didn't answer his next few calls. He texted anyway, "Are you mad? Please don't shut me out. I miss you." I didn't reply. I couldn't keep being the place he came to figure himself out if it meant I kept falling harder with no promise of a landing. 3 days passed. On the 4th, there was a knock at my door. I opened it, expecting a package. It was him. He looked like he hadn't slept. His hoodie was inside out, eyes rimmed red. He didn't say anything right away. Just stepped inside, shut the door behind him, and stood there like he'd lost his map. "I think I've been pretending," he said finally. "Not about liking you. About being okay with not calling this what it is." I didn't move. He walked over, slow, deliberate. I don't know what I am. I don't care. All I know is I want to be around you. I want this. And I'm tired of pretending it's something else. I crossed my arms, trying to hold the pieces of myself together. So now what? You decide you're bi, and we ride off into sunset? No, he said quietly. I decide I care about you, and I ask if you'll give me a chance to figure the rest out with you. That wall I'd built, the one I told myself was for protection? Yeah, it cracked. I stepped forward, and I kissed him. Not because he asked, not because he needed practice, but because for once, I wanted it, on my terms. And this time, when we pulled apart, I didn't feel like his experiment. I felt like someone he wanted. We didn't make it official. Not right away. There was no label, no dramatic announcement. Just a quiet shift. Jason started showing up without a reason. Sometimes it was for dinner. Sometimes it was just to sit next to me while I worked on my laptop in silence. Sometimes he'd crawl into bed without saying a word and fall asleep with his arms slung across my chest like it had always belonged there. He stopped talking about Claire, stopped pretending his feelings were some fluke. And me? I tried to play it cool. I tried to act like I was just going with the flow. But the truth was, I was terrified. Because every time he kissed me, really kissed me, like he meant it, I wanted to believe it meant more than he knew how to say. And I knew how dangerous that was. Then came the night we ran into his coworker. We were out late, grabbing burgers from this spot we used to hit back in college. We were laughing about some ridiculous TikTok he'd sent me earlier, sitting way too close in the booth, knees touching. And that's when this guy walked over. Jason? The guy asked, surprised. Didn't expect to see you here? Jason straightened up. Oh, hey, Caleb, what's up? Caleb's eyes flicked to me. Friend of yours? Jason hesitated. I watched the beat of silence drag out longer than it should have. Yeah, he said finally. This is my friend, Matt. I forced a smile. Nice to meet you. Caleb nodded, then clapped Jason on the shoulder. Anyway, see you Monday. When he was gone, the silence between us was louder than anything Caleb had said. You hesitated, I said, trying not to let it sting. Jason rubbed the back of his neck. I just didn't know what to call you. I could have helped you out. Boyfriend? Partner? Guy I've kissed more times than I can count. He winced. It's not like that. Then what is it? I don't know what people will think. I leaned back in the booth, suddenly cold despite the warmth of his knee still pressed against mine. Right. Because that's the part that matters. He didn't respond. We finished our food in silence and went back to my place. He stayed over like he always did, but that night, there was a gap between us in the bed that felt miles wide. In the morning, I woke up to an empty apartment. No note, no text. Just his absence. A full day passed, then another. I didn't hear from him until Saturday night. He called. I almost didn't answer. When I finally picked up, his voice was small. Hey, can I come over? I paused. I don't know, Jason. I owe you an explanation. He showed up 20 minutes later. He looked like hell, like he hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. He stood in my doorway, eyes searching mine like he wasn't sure I'd still be here. I freaked out, he said. The thing with Caleb, I wasn't ready for someone to see us. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I'm scared. I didn't say anything. I've never had to come out, he continued. Never had to wonder if people would see me differently. But with you, it's not just a kiss anymore. It's everything. It's you. And that scares the hell out of me because I don't want to lose you or mess this up. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I said, you're already kind of messing it up. I know, he said quietly. But I want to fix it. I want to try. Officially, whatever that means. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This wasn't the same guy who had asked to practice kissing 3 weeks ago. This was someone scared, uncertain, but still choosing to show up. You want to be with me, I said, more a statement than a question. He nodded. I do. I opened the door wider. Then come in, I said, and stop calling it practice. Jason came in and kicked off his shoes like he always did. But the way he walked toward me this time, slow, deliberate, not rushed or confused, felt new. Like something had finally settled in him. Like he'd stopped resisting. He stood close, hands fidgeting at his sides. So what now? he asked, voice quieter than usual. That depends, I said. Are we still pretending this is just casual? He shook his head. No more pretending. I'm not looking for a label. I'm just looking at you. That should have sounded cheesy, but it didn't. Not from him. I pulled him in by the hoodie, and he let me. His mouth found mine like we hadn't skipped a beat, like those 2 days apart hadn't left me sick with second-guessing. This time, he kissed me with intent. No hesitation, no apologies. He wasn't practicing anymore. He was claiming. We didn't speak for a while after that. He stayed the night again, but this time we didn't just fall asleep. We talked. About real things. He lay on his side, facing me, the sheets tangled between us, his hand resting on my chest like he'd always belonged there. Do you think I'm full of shit? He asked. About what? About this. Us. I shook my head. I think you're scared, and maybe a little reckless with other people's feelings sometimes. But full of shit? No. He smiled. That's generous. You get 1 grace period, I said. After that, I start charging rent for emotional labor. He laughed, then grew serious. I didn't think I'd ever be here. Like, in your bed, with you. Feeling like this. Like what? Safe, he said. And like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. It hit me right in the chest, because I'd spent so long guarding my heart around him, preparing for the day he'd inevitably break it. But now, hearing him say that, it felt like maybe I wasn't alone in this anymore. The next morning was the first time we acted like something had changed, and didn't try to undo it. He made us both coffee. Kissed me on the shoulder while I brushed my teeth. Took a photo of my ridiculous bedhead and made it his lock screen. Casual stuff, sure, but intimate in a way that told me this wasn't a phase for him. Later that week, we ran into Caleb again. This time at a grocery store, of all places. Jason was reaching for a box of cereal, and I was giving him shit about how he still ate like a 12-year-old when Caleb walked up. Hey, he said. Didn't expect to see you guys again. Jason glanced at me. Then, without a beat, he reached for my hand and laced his fingers through mine. Yeah, he said to Caleb. Matt and I are together. Caleb blinked. Oh, cool. Right on, man. Jason nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. See you around? He held my hand all the way to the checkout. Outside, I stopped him. So, that was a moment. He grinned. I was tired of hiding. I stared at him. You good with that? Jason pulled me in, right there in the parking lot, and kissed me like he didn't care who saw. I'm better than good, he said. I'm yours, if you'll have me. The weeks that followed felt like life had shifted a few degrees. Quietly, without fanfare, but unmistakably. Jason was still Jason, still made fun of my obsession with oat milk, still blasted pop punk in the shower, still watched horror movies through his fingers. But now, his hand found mine under the table. Now, he'd reach for me in the middle of the night like it was instinct. Now, he kissed me in the middle of conversations, just because he could. One Saturday afternoon, we were lying on the couch, legs tangled, our phones abandoned somewhere on the floor, when he said, My mom wants to meet you. I looked up from where I'd been tracing circles on his arm. As what? Your roommate? Guy who teaches you to kiss? He grinned. As my boyfriend, obviously. The words sent a weird thrill through me. So we're calling it that now? Unless you'd prefer a guy who keeps borrowing my hoodies and never returns them. I'll have you know, I said. I look better in them than you do. He laughed, leaned down, and kissed the tip of my nose. That's not up for debate. Meeting his mom went better than expected. She was warm, sarcastic in the same way Jason was, and after hugging me way too tight, she pulled me aside and said, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. You're good for him. I nodded, unsure what to say. I'd spent so long preparing for disappointment that kindness like that hit harder than I'd like to admit. Back in the car, Jason reached over and took my hand again. She likes you. I think I'm still recovering from the death grip hug. Yeah, she doesn't know boundaries. We both laughed, and for the first time I realized I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. There was no quiet panic in the back of my mind. No internal timer counting down to heartbreak. I was just happy. One night, maybe a month later, we ended up back on that same bench outside his building, the same one where this whole thing started. You know, I said, it's kind of wild. What is? And it all started because you wanted to, practice kissing. Jason smiled. eyes reflecting the porch light. I think I knew even then, I just didn't know how to say it. You could have saved me a lot of emotional spiraling. He leaned in, kissed me softly. Yeah, but then we wouldn't have had a good story. I looked at him. My best friend. My accidental first love. My maybe forever. Promise me something? I asked. Anything. Stop calling it practice. Jason grinned, pulled me in close and whispered, Deal. And this time, when he kissed me, it wasn't for practice. It was for real.